I think diversification within your client body is really important because it allows you to stave off market pressures or economic situations that might be affecting one part of the economy and not others, right? SaaS has had a golden age over the last 10 years, but right now they're hurting.
Hey, welcome to another episode of the Growth and Scaling Podcast. Today, we are so happy to have with us Cliff Simon. Cliff, tell us who you are and what do you do?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Todd. I am Cliff Simon. I'm the CRO of Carabiner Group. We are a RevOps as a service consultancy, um, and we help companies
Awesome.
when it comes to software and trying to implement that, right? Trying to manage that, trying to get their data
Right?
out of it, right? Everything from taking a look at your customer's buying journey to making sure that the appropriate go-to-market process is mapped to said journey, and then building up the technology to meet that process, which most of the time means doing some type of renovation, helping them adjust where they are, cleaning up some dirty
Right.
data, putting some good habits in place, and then going from there.
Right. So when you say full CRO, are you talking about like you're coming in and offering, I mean, it sounds like sales processes, sales tools and implementation of those tools. How much of that also goes into the marketing messaging and tell us like, what's a typical engagement look like for you?
Yeah, we touch everything in the customer lifecycle. I
Okay.
don't think RevOps is just sales, marketing, and CS.
I
It's
don't
those
either.
things as well as business operations, FinOps, right? Financial operations, and making sure that that dollar is being tracked all the way through. What happens when you start that awareness process and that education process all the way through acquisition, onboarding, implementation, renewal,
Right.
et cetera, et cetera. Um,
Right.
so we do look at that entire process.
And who's your target? Like, who's your avatar that you're going for? Who needs this kind of help?
It depends on what industry you're in as to what you call it, but just about everyone does. In SaaS, it tends to be Series A through Series D companies that we work with.
Right.
In financial services, in higher education, nonprofit, most people talk about it as digital transformation. Same thing in the manufacturing and nonprofit space. So,
Makes sense. They're all struggling to get their tech engaged with what they're doing anyway, right? So,
right.
let alone tracking client journey is a little bit tough.
Yeah, and for most folks, they're just trying to get their arms wrapped around the systems that they have today, trying to think about how to make the data flow appropriately. How can you trust the data and now make actionable insights based off of data, right? Everyone talks about data-driven
No
decision making,
kidding.
but very few folks actually do it.
Right. Well, most people see numbers and they see stats and they see reports, but they don't really know what to make of those numbers and stats and reports. And so, how do you help these guys? I mean, what are you doing? Are you ripping apart what they've got? Are you kind of redesigning? How often are you able to fix what they've got? Or are you typically running a new installation of something?
I mean, it becomes highly bespoke based off of not only the technology that they're using today and the way in which it's been implemented, but it's
Yeah.
also highly dependent upon the skill set of the people that are already in seat. If you have folks that are highly
Right.
capable when it comes to driving insights and analytics, but they're not great at systems, we can help augment from a
Right.
systems perspective. Sometimes they need us to help make sure that the data is being serviced appropriately so that they can then take that up to the board. In other cases, we have to
100%.
augment on the other side. So it really becomes dependent on the personnel that's there.
Totally makes sense. Totally makes sense. So as you are attracting your own clients and your own lead journey, what are you targeting? Like, if you were to pan pick one vertical, one industry, one client type, what would that be?
I don't know if I could just pick one. I think diversification within your client body is really important because it allows you to stave off market pressures or economic situations that might be affecting one part of the economy and not others,
True.
right? SaaS has
True.
had a golden age over the last 10 years, but right
Right.
now they're hurting. Folks in other
Yes, they
areas
are.
are still growing, right? We're in SaaS and people are like, oh no, the sky is falling. And in manufacturing and
Right.
all these other places, it's not. Like they're having booms where they had a lot of pains in 2020 and 2021. So I think it's really important
It's
to
true.
have that diversification. But the way that we like to engage with clients and that we think about working with clients is trying to find folks who already know they have a problem
Yeah.
and help them get to that next bit of solution, whether that is the next fundraise, that next
Right.
ARR marker, maybe strategic M&A,
Right.
or dwelling an IPO someday. And we do a lot of that through word of mouth and through referrals, right? Um, my entire
Nice.
thesis on B2B selling is that people want to buy in this space just like they do in B2C, right? Word of mouth and referrals
Right.
always been the greatest driver of success. And we've done a really good
100%.
job of driving that programmatically here. In 2021, we drove 54% of our business that way. Last
Wow.
year, that was almost 92%. Right. This year we're sitting north
Nice.
of 80% of all of our business coming from word of mouth and community led. So it's an
Love
amazing
it.
driver because people want to go to the places that they know they can get expert help, and they're going to ask their friends and their peers for that help, right? And ask them who they recommend. Who did you use when you had that problem? Who can I talk to even help me think through this? So
I love it. I love it. Well, as you approach new clients, I would love to hear, and I think those listening would love to know, as you hit these guys up and you start to actually dig into what's happening in their systems, how often are they kind of almost there? Like they've almost got it figured out, but they just need a few tweaks to understand, hey, pulling this lever is going to do this, and this is where you really need to turn your attention.
almost never. And I don't mean that like in a bad
That's
way. It's
funny.
just I think a lot of companies have grown so quickly, and we all have a tendency to put our attention on the places where the fires are the hottest or where the
Yeah,
wheel is
yeah.
the squeakiest. And
Right,
operations doesn't tend to get that love, right?
right,
Operations is a
right,
piece of the organization that, if it's working, it's working. Maybe it's not getting as efficient as we wanted to, but
right,
it did the job for a long time. And now we're in a place where most companies are trying to become far more efficient from a processes perspective. They're trying to figure out, well,
right,
my TAM shrinking, there's more competitors in the space. How can I actually make sure I'm not burning the limited addressable market that I currently have and grab as
right.
much market share as I can from the ones who are actually talking to me, because I might have a huge addressable market, but only a small subset of those folks are actually in a buying cycle right now.
Right, right, right. Interesting. And so your solutions to these companies, how often does it is I doubt it's ever very similar because there are so many ways to grow and scale. There's growth through acquisition, there's growth through referral markets, there's growth through, so many different channels. Is there one consistency though that you see between different strategies that you try to implement with these people?
The main consistency is driving the appropriate user adoption within the org on the folks who are on the front lines. If we can get good data into the
Okay.
system, we can now make historical models that are going to allow us to make data-driven decisions for the business. And now we can understand what the next step forward looks like. Right? It's really hard to get to where you want to go when you don't know where you're coming from.
Right. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. And I think most people get so focused on their launch that sometimes they forget that there's something beyond that launch phase where they're like, oh crap, where do I actually want to take this business? Have you seen that?
All the time, right? Most people, when they start a
Yeah.
business or have started figuring out product market fit and start grabbing that historical data, have no idea where they want to go with it. And because of that, they're not grabbing that data from the beginning, which means they're already behind the eight ball.
Right. Right.
I've
Well, a
seen
lot of them.
plenty of smart, I was gonna say, I've seen plenty of smart organizations come in and say, we understand we're probably going to bring in a really charismatic sales leader. We're going to bring in somebody that can go and hit the ground running. They've got a Rolodex. How can we operationalize that before we bring that person in to make sure that we're
Right.
capturing lightning in a bottle?
Right.
Because at the end of the
Right.
day, most of these companies are looking for strategic M&A, or they're looking for that next round of funding, and both of those things
Yeah.
require historical data to show how the business has progressed.
Yeah. I am so glad you're here. And I just wanted to take a few seconds to tell you about a program that we have assembled with a lot of our podcast guests and a lot of people who are listening to the show who are feeling the same way that they do. There's a recurring theme. You'll hear a lot of these founders talk about, I couldn't have done it without my team. I couldn't have done it without a support group of peers. I couldn't have done it without having someone to talk to that understood my feeling of isolation as an operator of my business. You see, you're not alone. It is hard running a business, and it's even harder when you know you can't express all your deepest concerns and frustrations with your executive team. It makes them nervous. It gets them scared. You don't want scared people on your executive team. So where do you turn? The Captain's Council is where you turn. The Captain's Council, it is an organization that we are put together with podcast guests, as well as people who are listening who are in the same boat. You see, peers are the only ones that can give you the type of empathy, the type of advice that only a founder or operator know and understand. Go check it out at captainscouncil.com. I know you're going to love what you see there. We have put together an organizational structure that has small group settings, a global community of founders and operators, as well as monthly and quarterly in-person events. You're going to love what you see there. I can't wait for you to check it out and enjoy the rest of this episode. Of course they are. I mean, unless you're the acquisition group, you know what I mean? You're going to be, you can start asking, but if you don't have it yourself, it's hard to actually be in a position to be acquired. So in exit strategy, I mean, as you work with these people, and a lot of people listening fail to ever think about what could my potential exits look like. How do you see that, and how do you coach these founders or operators through that stage of potential growth strategy?
It's interesting because we tend to get brought in on like really complex pieces, typically right after a company's been acquired by growth equity, where
Yeah.
growth equity has now taken 4 or 5 different companies that all sell into the same place, and they're trying to put them together as one amalgamation of a company, right? So we've
Right.
got a much
Right.
greater level of ARR, the multiple increases, but now you have to tie all these disparate systems together.
Right.
Um,
That's no
if
bueno.
you, yeah, it's difficult, right? And a lot of people try to stray away from that work because it's really onerous.
Right.
If you are a founder, co-founder, and you have the desire to sell someday, and
Yeah.
that's your stated goal, make sure your data is clean. We have seen multiple times that your multiple increases significantly if you've got better data versus
Right.
them understanding the amount of time and effort it's going to take to unwind that ball of spaghetti.
No kidding. It's awesome. So as you have been able to operationalize this in other people's companies, I got to know, I mean, how is this working out for you and your company? Have you been able to actually execute strategy that you're delivering to other people in your own business? And tell us a little bit about your own growth cycle.
Yeah, so company's 2.5 years old. We've grown pretty quickly, I think by even the most crazy of standards. Um, we do RevOps in a subscription model, right? 7 figures in ARR in our first year as a business. We 4.5x that last year,
Nice.
which is still
Nice.
wild to me.
That
We
is
have
crazy.
we've got a great CEO at the helm who has been doing consulting since he was in high school,
Nice.
as a way to break into investment banking. Yeah, I know, absolutely wild. And off of the back of the work that we put together last year, he was fortunate enough to win Forbes 30 under 30 at the ripe age of 23. So
Nice.
uh, we're getting accolades in that regard. We're
Nice.
we've been able to build a significant brand presence, and again, because of that work and getting out in front of this, we're seeing a lot of folks come to us as opposed to us having to go and find them. I know a lot of companies talk about demand generation. I'm far more interested in demand capture and working with the people that have an issue right now and know they have an issue and
Right.
have a vested interest in getting that solved in the terms of long-term partnership.
Right. Right. And is that, so as you've been able to grow and 4x in the last, I mean, that's fantastic after a first year of seven figure growth. Um, Tell us about that. Where do you see your own weaknesses? Because a lot of people in the space of consulting and in these, they feel like there is a ceiling. Where do you feel like your growth is going to lead you to? What kind of exit is this company looking at?
I think that's still up for debate internally. I
Yeah.
think we've had lots of different conversations there, and we'll see what time brings as we continue to grow, right? We
Right.
want to continue
Right.
to drive a profitable business, and maybe at some point it makes sense for us to take on some form of investment to help boost that
Right.
up, right? Right now we're still completely privately owned without any outside investment. Um,
Nice.
so it's a nice place to be
Congrats.
in.
That's a
Thank
great
you.
place to be in. Yeah. No, it's
Um,
exciting.
For us, I think it's just a matter of continuing to build out the internal systems, right? For a good chunk of the first year and a half, right? We were the cobbler, right? My kids had
Yeah.
to wear shoes. We spent a lot of time continuing to build out our internal systems, processes, KPIs, OKRs, and I
Awesome.
think that's yielding fruit, which is nice to see.
Good.
Personally, my weakness is on the marketing side because I'd never owned marketing prior to this,
Right.
and because of our involvement with communities like Pavilion, um, I was able and still continue to be able to talk to CMOs and VPs of marketing who have generously given me their time so I could learn from them and understand
It's
a lot
awesome.
of the different nuances of lead scoring and attribution, whether that's first or last or multi-touch. Um,
Right.
if such a thing even exists, I know that's a hot topic for debate. Or, do we go leads or do you go ABM and account based? And what does that look like to run a contact only model? So, um,
Right.
yeah, lots of great conversations, lots of great learning. And I think if anyone is foolish enough and has the hubris to think that they can go on their own without learning from others, they're in for a rude awakening.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. And that leads us into kind of our next segment, which are the challenges. I mean, you've already kind of addressed the fact that you've reached out to peers and people who are able to give you a lot of good feedback. What are some of the big surprises that you've hit on your own growth journey that maybe you weren't expecting, but you're able to handle them? And how did you handle them?
Yeah, there's been some significant challenges along the way, right? I think as a bootstrap business, the number one challenge is always cash flow,
Of course.
right? If your clients aren't paying you on time, that can be
Right.
a big challenge. Thankfully, we've never missed a payroll, and that's something that we're really proud of, and
Nice.
we continue to probably put out there, even at our own expense at times, right? Uh,
Of
it's sort
course.
of what happens when you own a business.
That is what
Um,
happens, especially when you're bootstrapped.
right, right. Other people have to pay their mortgages, feed their kids, and
Get those lines of
that's
credit ready while you have them, while you can get them.
yep, that's right. Um, on the other side, it's just the sheer amount of time it takes to stand up proper mentorship and making sure that your employees are heard and
Yeah.
giving them that sense of ownership within the business where they can come and say anything. I think our COO and our former managing director did a fantastic job of that, building
Right.
out really good systems, um, roadmaps for personal development, and
Nice.
it was something that we missed for the first 8-10 months of the business when we knew we needed to grow into it, and I think
Sure.
that was a big add once we were able to do those things.
Well, there's nothing better than having happy employees, and when you see them enjoying what they're doing, and you're providing them the resources that they need, everyone gets excited. They just do a better job of that. So that's an awesome feedback. What As you approach your clients and looking at the challenges that you've been able to overcome within your own business, what kind of empathy do you see when you see them dealing with the same kind of challenges that you've been having to deal with?
Yeah, no, I feel for him, and it's also a really great opportunity to not just sit across the table from somebody, but to sort of just saddle up next to them, kitty corner, and or get up at a whiteboard together and talk through, well, these are the problems you're seeing. Maybe the way that we dealt with it isn't the exact way that you're going to, but here's our
Right,
experience. This is how I've seen it happen. This is how I've dealt with it over my 20-year career.
right,
How can how can you leverage that and use that to mold it in your way, right? So sometimes
right.
it's just having a shoulder to lean on or someone to talk to.
Love it. Love it. Fantastic. This has been a fantastic conversation. And as you listeners are tuning into this, you got to understand that growth and scaling is a much different animal than launching a business. And as you start to really try to understand your mechanisms and the levers that you need to pull to make different things happen, it helps so much to have someone like Cliff and his team at your back. Cliff, what do you have to say to people who are out there not recognizing that they have a problem? They think that they're rolling right along. What kind of red flags do you see that I mean, obviously you love to get the guys that know they have a problem, but what red flags do you see that people just aren't recognizing that they need help with?
Yeah, if you are in the C-suite or a VP of a company and you have an inability to easily um, roll up and deliver data to your board deck, and that's a challenge for you, that's probably a red flag.
That is a red
If you
flag.
if you have no idea, if you're a startup, what your CAC to LTV ratio is, and you can't calculate it because you don't have the underlying metrics to drive it, that's a red
Right.
flag.
Right.
If you're a frontline sales manager and you don't have the ability to coach your team based off of their data, right?
Right.
What's their win rate? Not, you have to have 3x pipe. Well, what's the closing rate for that individual rep, and what's that rep's conversion rate across the entire customer lifecycle?
Right.
Coach to the person and coach to the capability, not to the standard rep or the average rep, because the average rep doesn't exist, right? You've got
For real though.
one or two folks on your team that are carrying probably like 60 to 75, maybe 85% of all of your revenue, and everybody else is struggling right now.
Yep.
There's a partner of ours, Ebsta, that just released another report. 29% of reps hit quota. Like, that's
Are
it.
you serious?
Yeah, and
Wow.
that was like across $36 billion worth of opportunities,
Wow.
right?
Wow. That's crazy.
29% of reps hit quota.
And are these reps in organizations where there are people hitting quota, I'm guessing?
Yeah, yeah.
Sometimes quotas get a little high and they're a little outlandish, but that is a fascinating stat.
It's absolutely wild.
Wow.
What I think the problem that most companies have is that they try to optimize for those couple folks,
Yeah.
and they forget that they need to help optimize for the folks that are doing 30, 40, 50%. Because if you can put in processes and systems to help bring those folks up to 50, 60, 80% of quota, the company's going to do much better. They're going to be happier, and you're going to give them better skill set.
Love it.
So,
Love it. Dude, I love conversations like this. And honestly, I think we could probably do an hour show of just one segmentation of RevOps, but I'm not going to do that today. so Cliff, tell me this. As you, knowing who you're talking to, knowing that this audience does need help, like what you have to offer, what are some suggestions that you would give to them to you've seen these red flags? What are some things that you should probably do in order to engage with someone like you or to engage with you?
yeah. One, reach out, shoot me a message on LinkedIn. Happy to give you guys access to a free tech assessment.
Nice.
That way you can map the activities that your current client acquisition channels have, and map that to your existing tech stack to see where your overlaps are and where your deficiencies are, and
Cool.
then map that back to your customer's buying journey. Happy to share that. On the other side, start being programmatic about it. Like, think about the data points.
Yeah.
Think about how your customer wants to buy from you,
Yeah.
and walk through that journey. If your go-to-market process isn't mapped to how your customer wants to buy, you're adding unnecessary friction to the process.
100%.
Start there.
100%.
Yeah, and lead with empathy. Now, you talked about it before, right?
Yep.
Meet your customers where they're at. Talk to them. Be honest about them. Talk to them about their business problems. Don't talk to them about your product. No one cares about what your product can do.
Everybody cares about their own pain.
Yes.
Love it.
Talk to them about their business issues. Talk to them about their goals. How are they going to get there?
Yep.
I've got a buddy who's a CRO. His company's doubling their target this year.
Wow.
Right, from last year.
Wow.
Didn't give him any more resources. Well, how you plan on doing that? Partner led. Okay. Everyone seems to be going partner led this year. Do you have a system in place to actually be able to activate that?
100%.
Is there a systematic way that you're going to engage with all of your partners to make sure that you're in lockstep and that you can show your partners value, because they're just as important as your clients
100%.
at that point, right? You got to treat them like customers.
100%.
So there's a lot of things people can be doing nowadays. It's just a matter of focusing on one or two and executing on them really well. Don't get stuck in that place where you're trying to do everything all at once, because none of us can.
Love it. Cliff, appreciate your advice, appreciate your wisdom, and I love what you shared with the people today, and I know they're going to get huge value out of this. Please hit Cliff up, get that metric system that he has to show you, and do some self-analysis. Understand where you're at in your sales journey. Understand your revenue operations a little bit better than you think you know them, because chances are you're missing data points everywhere. So, Cliff, I appreciate you being here. And thank you so much for being on the show. We appreciate all that you've shared, and we'll share links to everything he's talking about in the show notes. Thanks, Cliff.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Todd. Take care.
What did you think? Did you have some things fire in your head? Did you have some ideas that you think you need to go work on right now? I hope you do, because almost every business out there could always use a little polishing when it comes to their revenue operations. Is your tech having problems? Are you dealing with difficulty with leads all over the place and you don't know how to map their journey and build it into a system? This is who you need to talk to. These are the types of people that are going to help you build and grow your revenue and profitability into places you never imagined possible. So enjoy. I hope you enjoyed this thing. Re-listen to it. Write questions below in the comments. I know Cliff would be willing to jump in and pay attention to what you have to ask. And we cannot wait to hear from you in our community. You know, one of the things that Cliff talked about near the end of the interview and after our interview was the fact that so many companies can benefit from learning from other companies dealing with the same problems. Now, I know you don't want to go to your competitors, but you do want to go to peers, other people who are building and growing their own organizations. That peer network can be found in several places, but we have launched one specifically geared towards growth and scaling. It's called Captain's Council. If you're the captain of your business, you need to counsel with other captains to see what you're missing. What is that missing piece you're sitting right next to sometimes, but aren't seeing it because you're so focused on the business? Your peers can help you. A network of other peer operators who can help guide you, direct you, and bring you to that next level of growth that you need. This is what you need to focus on. So, thank you so much for being here. We can't wait to see you on the next episode of the Growth and Scaling Podcast. We appreciate the Captain's Council being there for all of our founders and operators who need that peer advice, and we'll catch you on the next episode.